In the late 1980s and early 1990s, a series of murders along Florida's highways terrified law enforcement. 7 men were found shot dead, their bodies abandoned in remote locations. The killer seemed to vanish into the darkness after every attack. But when police finally made an arrest, the nation was stunned. The suspect was a woman. Her name was Eileen Warnos, and she would become one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. This is the story of violence, trauma, murder, and the controversial legacy of a woman who remains one of the most debated criminals in modern history. Eileen Coronos Warnos was born on February 29, 1956 in Rochester, Michigan. From the beginning, her life was marked by instability. Her father, a convicted sex offender, was in prison before she was even born. Her parents separated when she was still an infant. Abandoned by her mother, Eileen and her brother were raised by their grandparents. According to later accounts, her childhood was filled with neglect, violence, and sexual abuse. By her early teens, she was struggling with homelessness, surviving on margins of society. At just 14 years old, she became pregnant after reportedly being assaulted by a family acquaintance. The child was placed for adoption. Soon afterwards, she was thrown out of her grandparents' home. Alone and desperate, Eileen began living in the woods and supporting herself through prostitution. The experience of her youth would shape the rest of her life.
She had a horrible childhood. There is a lot of people that's had bad lives, but not from day get-go. This poor kid had a child, was raped and had a child. And her grandmother died, and she was abandoned, living out, in the woods, and her older brother and sister got to stay in houses. That's where she got to be a prostitute. She needed food and things, and cigarettes for her brother and sister. Why didn't they take care of her? Actually, when they told me she was a prostitute, I have no idea what a prostitute was.
Throughout her 20s and 30s, Warnos drifted across the United States. She survived longing through sex work, hitchhiking, and temporary jobs. Her life became a circle of arrest, violence, and poverty. In 1986, she met a woman named Tyra Moore at a bar in Florida. The two quickly formed a relationship. For Warnos, Moore represented stability, companionship she had rarely experienced. But financial problems persist. To support herself and her relationship, Warnos continued working as a sex worker along Florida's highways. Then, in the late 1989, men began disappearing. Between November 1989 and November 1990, 7 men were killed. Most were middle-aged motorists who had encountered Warnos while she was working along Florida's roadways. The victims were Richard Mallory, David Spears, Charles Culterson, Peter Saling, Troy Burris, Charles Humphreys, and Walter Antonio. Each victim has been shot multiple times with a .22 caliber handgun. Authorities initially struggled to find a connection between the killings, but the investigators soon discovered a pattern. Several victims' vehicles' belongings have been stolen and later recovered. Fingerprints, witness statements, and pawnshop records gradually pointed to detectives towards Warnos. The case gained national attention. Many wondered whether the murders were motivated by robbery, revenge, self-defense, or some combined of all three. Warnos would later insist that she had killed in self-defense after being attacked by her clients. This claim would become one of the most controversial aspects of the entire case. In 1991, police arrested Eileen Warnos at a biker bar in Florida. Investigators faced challenges.
The day after she attacks him, Eileen tells Mike to join her at her motel.
She made the statement to me, let's go out tonight and bring all your money and I'm gonna show you a good time. At that point, I knew what the next move was gonna be. So I kind of told the guys that was listening and videoing across the street, I said, guys, I'm telling you right now, we're gonna piss on this fire and call in the dogs, because this hunt's over with, and I'm her next victim. So I told her I was going to get a motel room and brought the key back, and I gave it to her. And that's when the other cops come in and arrested both of them.
Look over there now. What you doing there, pal? Hey.
The police knew they didn't have a stitch of evidence that could convict Eileen.
Under arrest. For what? For a warrant. For what warrant? A warrant.
But once Eileen was arrested, it was all over. She was guilty. Eileen was charged in a court of public opinion long before this trial ever began.
They believe her girlfriend, Tyra Moore, could help secure a confession. Working with authorities, Moore contacted Wuornos repeatedly. The recorded confessions eventually persuaded Wuornos to cooperate. Soon afterwards, she confessed to multiple killings. However, she continued to argue that the first murder, Richard Mallory, had occurred after she violently assaulted and threatened her. The remaining killings, she claimed, were influenced by fear, paranoia, and developed by that encounter. Prosecutors saw the case differently. They argued that the murders were deliberate acts committed during the robberies. Wuornos was tried first for the murder of Richard Mallory. The jury found her guilty. She was sentenced to death. Over the following years, she was pled guilty to several additional murders and received multiple death sentences. The legal proceedings sparked widespread debate. Some observers viewed Wuornos primarily as a ruthless serial killer. Others pointed to her traumatic history, mental health struggles, and alternative drug abuse. Questions emerged about whether her actions could be fully understood without examining the violence she had experienced throughout her life. Yet the courts ultimately rejected her self-defense claim. By the early 2000s, Wuornos had become increasingly distrustful and erratic. She dismissed appeals and insisted that her execution be moved forward. On October 9, 2002, at the age of 46, Eileen Wuornos was executed by lethal injection. Her last statements reflected unusual beliefs and paranoia she displayed during her final years. Even after her death, public fascination with her story continued. Eileen Wuornos remains one of the most complex figures in American criminal history. Was she a calculated serial killer, a victim who became a perpetrator, or both? More than 3 decades after the murders, the questions surrounding her life continues to challenge for simple answers. Her story stands as a disturbing reminder of how trauma, violence, and crime can become tragically intertwined.
Oh, well.
But why not say now?
Because I'm out of retaliation for taking my life like this and getting rich off it all these years in total pathological lying. Yeah, thanks a lot. I lost my fucking life because of it. Couldn't even get a fair trial. Couldn't even get a fair investigation or nothing.